3, 2, 1.
And we have liftoff. This is the Life Athlete Podcast. I am your host, Peter Shmock. Welcome back if you're returning, and thanks for joining us if you're here for the first time. This is going to be quite a show. How about the name Antonio Argüelles from Mexico? You heard that name? Probably not. Did you read an article in the New York Times Sunday magazine front page of the sports section about 1 month ago? Well, I'm going to come back to that. Here's the lead-in for this week, and you'll see why when you listen to Antonio coming up. I think it takes a fair amount of courage to go through this life, especially if you want to continue to grow and to challenge yourself and just bite off occasionally a little bit that's too much, a little bit that makes you a little uncomfortable. And I think that this is a great part of what Life Athlete is, that sort of curiosity, the want, the desire to keep exploring and to keep growing in your mind and in your body. And just having the courage to step into that, to lean into that. Don't bite off too much, just enough, so that you have that momentary, like, God damn, this might be a little challenging. This may be tough. This may push some of my fear buttons. But I think it's important to live life with this sense of curiosity, with this sense of wonder, with this sense of openness into change, into growth, and biting off a little bit more than you can chew every now and then. Because frankly, if you don't, I think you're on a death path faster than not. And I truly believe this. I am pushing myself this year more than I ever have, and I have never come up with as many scary self-doubt thoughts that I have had since probably the days of the Olympics, and that's quite a few years ago. And I tell you, I've never been more fulfilled at the same time that I've never had, those moments of doubt where like, wow, maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. Maybe I'm just a little bit too much out of my element. So I don't regret it at all. I enjoy it a lot, and I feel more alive. And I just wanted to share that with you. I think that's an important factor, and I want all of you to be in your lives the very best you can, developing all of your potential of being wonderful, alive, vital human beings with an inquisitiveness. So this is the segue into my guest, Antonio Argüelles. So just a little bit of a background. I read in the New York Times sports section about exactly 4 weeks ago. And the lead story, front page, New York Times, was about Antonio. And it was about this guy who had, on the previous Thursday, had swam the Northern Channel. That goes from Ireland to Scotland, 21 miles, 55-degree temperature, with a boat next to him, but he was never allowed to touch the boat. And this was the 7th of the channel crossings that he swam to complete what's called the Ocean 7. And the Ocean 7 are the hardest channel swims in the world, equivalent to hiking climbing the 8,000 peaks. I believe there's 7 in the world of climbing. Quite an achievement. And I was captivated by the story of how this guy endured and over the number of years that it has taken him to do this. So this is a great story of courage, of persistence, of keeping to come back and making it fun. You will hear his words coming up. And I was thrilled to be able to make contact through a network of people and say, Man, I would love to do a show with you. And boom, here he is. So here's the kicker. 7 people have done the Ocean Sevens. He's the 7th. He's the first Mexican American to have swum the 7 hardest channels in the world. And he is the oldest. Antonio is 58 years young. And that was the kicker for me. It's like, this dude, I need to get in front of him and just hear his story. This is inspirational. So I hope it is for you as well. Without further ado, here is Antonio.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Great talking to you.
It's great to be talking to you. Where are you? What part of Mexico are you in?
I live in Mexico City.
Oh, so that would explain the traffic this morning.
Yes, you never know. I had an interview this morning on a radio station, and I assumed I'll be here exactly on time, and suddenly the traffic started becoming more a problem, and then suddenly we beat it, so I'm here. Mexico City is worse than LA.
Seattle is slowly going up, climbing the ladder of being one of the worst places in the world as well. It is absolute boom time here, so we know traffic as well. But I've heard about Mexico City, so I hear you. Well, man, it's great to talk to you, and your story is phenomenal, and the fact that we're connected through a guy named Gary Lee, who we know, I think is pretty amazing when I think about it.
Yes, it is.
So, how are you feeling after your? Was it August 3rd? August 3rd that you completed your North Channel swim?
Well, it was 2 weeks ago yesterday, and I feel pretty happy. It was something that I was looking forward for. I swam for 2 years. I just had my mind and my training towards finishing the Ocean 7, but I never thought it would become such a big deal. The article in the New York Times really made it big, and that was something that I was not expecting, and I'm just enjoying as a friend of mine said, my 15 seconds of glory, and I'll be in all TV stations and in national newspapers, and the thing is, I have to find just a little bit to tell a little bit a different story, because otherwise it gets very boring. But hopefully on Sunday will be my last one, and then I'll go back to what I want to do in the next couple of years.
So let me just chronicle exactly what you have done, which I can appreciate, being in the moment, that what you think about is, train, preparation, completing the Ocean 7, which we'll get to exactly what they are in just a second. And in that light, it's almost like, you wouldn't think that anybody else would be interested. It's your passion. It's your deal. It's what you do, and all of a sudden you complete it, and the world notices.
Yes, and it was, because the world of open water swimming, it's a very, very small world at that level. I mean, we are a couple of, guys that we know each other, and we read sometimes what, there's a great guy that you should interview at one moment. His name is Steven Munatones.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Munatones is the godfather of open water swimming, and he has something called the Daily News of Open Water Swimming. And while you read there what some of the other guys are doing, but it's not mainstream. I mean, people are not. It's not like football, baseball, or basketball. I mean, people are not interested in these kinds of stories. And the article in the New York Times, what it did was, got a lot of my friends from my high school and my college years getting back to me. We're going to have our 35th reunion this year at Stanford, and they asked me if I could give a brief talk, during the weekend. Mm-hmm. One of the great things is I've met you. I saw your website and I haven't read your book, but I saw that you are in very, very good shape. I mean, you just look amazing.
Thank you.
And I think this is when people ask me, at the end, why do I keep on doing? Why do I keep training at the level that I do? It's because I like to feel well. And sports has been a constant in my life since the day I decided I wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. And so that's why one of the things that really made me, want to do the interview and be able to meet you, even if it's just by Skype, because I think you also have great stories. So those are the benefits of being in the news. I mean, you get to meet people, and right. you're able to get your message out, and to me, physical activity, it's an important message, because Mexico, as well as the States, has an obesity problem that is just out of the world.
Well, and you said it well. You're doing it because you like to feel well. And I think that's a powerful message. You can conquer, the Ocean 7 and do great things by, training and taking care of yourself. And I think that message taken out in the world to those people that don't move, that don't know how to take care of themselves, or that kind of are lost in their bodies, if you will, the one thing I haven't said here is that you completed this 2 weeks ago at the age of 58. And, all of this, you've crossed the what's called the Ocean 7, which is the equivalent of the 7 summits, climbing the 7 summits in the world at 8,000 meters. You're the first Latin American person to do that, and you're the 7th person ever, at any age. And the oldest person to have ever done it. And if I look down that list of, first Latin American, 7th person, the one that strikes me and is most impressive to me is oldest ever. Like, man, you're still doing it. That's so awesome. That's just so awesome. And that's such a powerful, powerful message. What attracted you to doing this originally? I mean, you wanted to become an Olympic swimmer, and then, something happened. How did you find your way? How did you swim your way in this direction?
What happened is I was good when I was at high school and college, and I was part of the Mexican team, and I wanted to go to the Olympics, and that's why I met Bill Lee. So I started selling Speedo swimsuits, goggles, and caps when I was 14 years old. And Bill took me under his wing and invited me to live in their house. And, if you talk to Gary or to Grant or to Debbie or David, I consider them my brothers, and I consider Shirley and Bill my parents. Even my mother, when she used to refer to them, he always said that were my American parents, because Bill always made me feel that way, and Shirley and the whole family. And but I wasn't good enough. I was good enough to beat the women, but I wasn't good enough to beat the top swimmers. So when I got into Stanford, and you are back NCAA Division I, well, you find your way. You let you know where you are, and I wasn't meant to swim at that level. And I stopped swimming, and I didn't swim for about 20 years.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I stopped totally. And I started running. I did, I have a 2:55 marathon in New York.
No kidding. Gosh, that's awesome.
And so I started running, and then triathlon started. And I started triathlon in Mexico. I'm the honorary president of the federation. And I also started a company that does triathlons and sports events. And when I turned 40, I wanted to go to Everest. And my family I had a revolt in my family. So they started crying and saying if I want to kill myself, don't go so long. My body is going to be lost in the snow and all those things.
Just do it here. Just kill yourself here. You don't have to go to the Himalayas to kill yourself.
And so I started, as I said, I'll do the equivalent, and I did my first channel in 1999 when I turned 40.
But which one was that?
That was, I did the English channel.
Okay.
When I turned 40, I did, well, at that time, the big deal was the Triple Crown. And the Triple Crown of swimming was doing the swim around Manhattan, cross the Catalina Channel, and cross the English Channel. Mm-hmm. And I was the 7th person in the world to do the Triple Crown. So after that, I decided I didn't want to swim anymore, and I did 4 or 5 Ironman. So for a decade, I just did Ironmans and marathons. And then when I turned 50, I wanted to do the Triple Crown in one season. Nobody had done it at that moment, and I was not the first one. I was the 3rd one in the world to do it, and I was the first one to do it 2 times. And that year I won the National Sports Awards here in Mexico. And after that, I went back to wanting to go to Everest. And this time my family, my daughter and my son are much older, said, "Dad, do whatever you want. I mean, you're old enough. Just do whatever you want." And I started climbing. I did a lot of climbing, and I broke my leg. I guess, when I was coming down one of the mountains, and I guess I just had a little chip above my knee, and I didn't pay attention to that. And 2 weeks later, I had a stress fracture in my femur, and I broke my femur in 25 centimeters, which is very long.
Wow! Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it was the first lesson was I was not going back to Everest. I mean that was just a sign that Everest was not meant for me. And then I started recovering, and I was with my crutches and started swimming slowly, as part of my recovery. And one day I was getting out of the pool at the end of my recovery, and I finished. And then I talked to a friend of mine, and I said, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel I'm getting old. I broke my leg. I think my competitive years are over."
And was that just based on kind of how your body was feeling? I mean, here I am, I broke my leg. Were you kind of down in the dumps? That you believed that your heyday was over?
Yes, it was. I was preparing myself mentally to become old, and at that time I was about 54. 54.
So not that long ago.
No. But I'll tell you all this story because it's really interesting what happened. So one day I'm getting out of the pool with one of my workouts, and a coach there, who's a friend of mine, she tells me, "Antonio, do you know there's a new challenge called Ocean 7?" And I said, no, I don't know about it. So what is it? And she tells me, the 7 oceans. And she laughs at me and said, "Well, you know what your swimming friends in the community of swimmers in Mexico, open water swimmers, says, well, you're too old, and you will never be able to be the first Mexican to do this." And I got really pissed. And I called my coach, Nora Toledano, and I said, "I'm going to put myself a challenge. If I can run a marathon under 6 minutes per kilometer, I will know I'm ready to go back and do Ocean 7. So I run Boston, I run Chicago, and I did it. I did that Chicago in 2:14, and I said, well, I'm ready, and I started training again. And in 2:15, I did Gibraltar and Tsugaru in Japan. And then in 2:16, I did the Molokai Channel, which is my longest swim, 23 hours and 18 minutes.
Wow.
This year,
How long in miles was that?
it's not pretty long. It's only about 45 kilometers, and you swim in a much pretty straight line, that one. But the conditions were really bad. There was a lot of wind and a lot of waves, and the currents were not cooperating that day. So that's why it took me so long.
Well, that's like the perfect trifecta against, going very fast, having to fight against Mother Nature in those ways. I want to go back and ask you that about this notion that you were getting too old, that you were done, and you're just going to kind of lay down. I'm putting words in your mouth now, and I think about so many people that are over. Some of them are over 40, some of them are over 50, some are over 60. That face that as well. I see it all the time, and that they kind of lose that internal passion to keep striving, to keep moving forward, to keep growing. And you were in that place. What's advice do you have to people that how do they get out of that mindset? How did you do that? And what advice do you have for them?
Well, there was two things. Probably the first one was my ego. Just thinking that somebody was putting a challenge and that I was over it. But I felt well. I mean, I knew I could. It was getting back into the routine. The other thing was that in that time, after I broke my leg, they discovered hypertension, that I have had high blood pressure. They discovered that 8 years ago. So that was a big blow to me as well. And I asked the doctor with all the sports that I've done in my life, why did that happen? And he explained it was just genetics. But the other thing that happens is that my family has a big history of diabetes. Mm-hmm. And in those days, my sugar started going up. I'm not diabetic or pre-diabetic, but it was moving in the wrong direction. So it was a combination of finding again a challenge for myself, but also feeling well. I mean, the notion for myself that I would take medicines just to keep me alive just doesn't go along with me, and I wanted to, what I think is that the best medicine that I can get is exercise myself and keep moving and watch what I eat, and rather than just sit all day long and take medicines. And that was something that it really moved me into being conscious again, that a big part of to trying to get back into these challenges was feeling well and getting away of the medicines and the doctors and all the other things that come along with when you stop doing exercise.
I think for some, as you're saying, it's really easy just to kind of give their power away to a prescription that says, this will take care of what ails you, and you don't have to do anything.
Yes, I see many people. Let me just give you a number. I know the numbers for the United States, but in Mexico, the Social Security system, which is one of the largest public services in Mexico, they should have maybe around 50 to 60 million people there. 90% of all the budget goes to 12 million people who are obese. So the problems, the numbers in terms of what's happening with obesity in Mexico, the amount of money that the government has to pay just to keep people alive. And I feel it's very, it's very easy for people to say, I cannot do this, I cannot move, I cannot do that, and I just take medicine. And when I have a chance, I always tell people that for me, crossing a channel, for me, finishing Ocean 7 is probably easier than for somebody who has been sedentary all his life to get up and start doing something, or somebody who has smoked all his life, stop smoking. I just like to tell people, give it a try. you're going to feel much, much better once you start moving than when you are, sedentary.
Yeah, those are good words, and I think you have from where you are in your life, what you've accomplished, some of your hereditary, factors that you've been handed. You have a strong platform to speak from that I think is very attractive. I think, man, get out there and keep doing it. That's so awesome. The strong voice for that. So let's go back to Ocean 7. I'm interested in how you trained for the Ocean 7 channel swims and how that changed over the years.
Well, one thing I liked about you is that I think you're a karate instructor, no? Or you do karate?
No, I don't. I've thought about it in the past, but I haven't. No.
But you do something that has to do with meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong?
Meditation, yes. I studied years ago with a fellow named Gao Li Ting, who was a brilliant, not only dancer, but a teacher of Tai Chi and Qigong. And he was very influential to me. Unfortunately, he's back in Beijing now. But I think that most of the movement that I teach has, a part of Gao Li in it. So that I have studied, not for years and years and years, but I had a brief, intense period with him.
Well, my training for the Ocean 7 had 4 parts. The first one is miles in the water. I mean, you need to train. I don't train. In my youth, I used to swim 6 hours a day and swim 20 kilometers a day, and that's a lot. Yeah. Now I do, on my peak weeks, I do about 50 kilometers a week, and on the average, I swim maybe 32 kilometers a week, 6 days a week. So that's just like the basics. Something that when I started Ocean 7, I did Gibraltar, and that was kind of easy. But when I did Tsugaru, which is a swim in Japan, I felt really, really bad. And my left shoulder was hurting a lot. And when I came back, I said, well, if I want to go to Molokai, and I knew Molokai was going to be very complicated in terms of the amount of time that I would be in the water, I need to change and improve my technique. So I hired a coach, and I worked with him 2 times a week, just technique. I devote 2 hours a week in just swimming technique to try to be the most efficient swimmer that I can in the water. Then the third thing that I hadn't done in many, many, many years was strength training. And I had the fortune to find somebody who, for the first time, gave me a strength routine that really helped me. And it was all geared to my swimming. And I spent about 1.5 years preparing myself mentally. I put a lot of hours into mental training. I have a routine that I do of Qigong and a lot of visualization. And if you ask me from the four things that I do, which one is key for success, is the mental training.
How does that help you the most?
Well, in open water swimming, you're gonna face all the time. There's no swim where you face a crisis. It can be that the currents change, that the waves are big, that the wind picks up, that you get tired. So in those moments, if you don't have the mental strength, you're gonna be gone. Let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. In Hawaii, I swam for 23 hours and 18 minutes. And the longest I had swum before that was 18 hours and 19 minutes. And when I arrived at the 18 hours and 19 minutes, I had two choices. Either get out and say, well, I swam as long as I could, or to continue. And, at that moment, I knew I had at least another 5 hours in front of me. If I had looked at 23 hours rather than what I did at 5 hours, I probably would have stopped. And at that moment, I had to find and get out of the crisis and say, well, 5 hours is it's a long weekend swim. So let's go for the long weekend swim and forget what has happened. And that's what it took me into the end. In the North Channel, we were just right on pace and strategy. Everything was going fine. And the pilot tells me at hour 10, we only have 2 more hours to go. We're doing really good. We are already in the Scottish side. Let's go. At hour 11, when I stopped to be fed, they tell me you have to change. For the next hour, the currents have changed. The current is in front of you. And if you don't break it, you're never going to make it to Scotland.
Oh,
so after 11 hours, I had to sprint for an hour to be able to cross, to beat the current. So at hour 12, when I did it, they said, well, to be sure, we want another hour. Because those guys, when you're in the water, you'd be swimming at 56 degrees Fahrenheit. About the average was about 13.7 degrees Celsius, and they tell you that you have to sprint for 2 hours at the end. If you're not mentally prepared, you're going to be getting on the boat.
So your mental training it enables you to kind of stay on task and not be derailed by, the thought like, oh man, I don't know, this is going to be too hard. You just keep putting one arm in front of the other.
Exactly. And the other thing is, you go in Seattle, you go to the beach, and, probably, I don't know if you go in the winter, but, I don't know how cold it is in the summer. And that's your warm days. Well, Mexico has no cold water ever in any of its oceans.
Right.
So cold water for me was very, very, very scary. And I had to do a lot of mental training to be able to take the pain of cold water. The pain of cold water is a pain that starts very fast. It's something that you're going to have by in the first 15, 20, 25 minutes when you swim, and it's going to stay there. There's no way you're going to be able to get warm if you're swimming in those in those waters. So you have to train your body and your mind to disregard that feeling. That feeling has to become part of your body, part of your routine, part of your swim, and it doesn't count. You have to be able to get it out of your mind, because otherwise it's going to get very complicated. And that was...
Yeah, that's so true. And I can just imagine that if people in Seattle were to go to the Puget Sound, which we have a lot of water here, and right now we're in the middle of summer, so it's 80 degrees out or something like that. The water is right around probably 54, 53 degrees. And I think most people, if they were to go down and wade in the water, just being able to, wade out a couple feet into the water is going to be like, oh, this is way too cold. I've got to get back. And all of a sudden now, what's the thinking that I'm going to be in the water for how many hours and my whole body, immersed in it, and how you dealt with it. Mentally, that's I think that's a tremendous value that people can take away.
And after, the other one that I like I can't tell this to many people because they think, I smoke some pot now that it's legal. but my Qigong routine, it takes me about 21 minutes. And if I do it longer, it becomes more complicated because I have to do all the movements slower. And one time previous to this swim, I had been able to concentrate for about 10 minutes. So after the first really, really fast hour, and they tell me I have to do another hour, I did my routine mentally and swam with it, which was very refreshing.
You did your qigong, your tai chi and qigong movements, kind of thinking about those as you were swimming.
Exactly.
Wow, that's brilliant. That is just amazing. Keep going. I want to hear more. This is great.
Well, what happened is, when they tell me I have to go another hour, that we crossed, but I have to go another hour really fast. For me, that's a yellow light. I mean, maybe they're not telling me the truth. Maybe this is going to change. And then I start making my own numbers, and I say, well, this can go up to 15 or 16 hours. So I might be in the water another 4 or 5 hours. And at the end, it was only an hour and a half, 2 hours and a half more. No, 1 hour and a half more because at hour 12. So I said, I need to get energy. And when I do Qigong, I get a lot of energy. It's like if I take a pill and I generate a lot of energy. So I start doing my routine and I don't remember what was going on. I wake up when I finish the routine and it coincides that my coach is telling me from the boat that I have 4 minutes until I'm going to be feeding. And I did my routine in 26 minutes, which is pretty long. So I did that. I clearly remember when I started and how I did all my movements, and you have to go slow and the breathing and feeling how my tendons were elongating. And what happened is that I finish, I get in the boat, and I have more energy than anyone on the boat after 13 hours and 32 minutes in those waters. And that just taught me a big lesson. I mean, that, the way that charged me with energy was just amazing.
So the fact that you were kind of focusing inward in your breath, in your kind of how your body is feeling, and you weren't thinking about, oh my God, I've got 2 miles to go, or my God, the current's so strong, or it's just so cold. It's like you were kind of taking your mind away from those thoughts and putting them back into the practice of Tai Chi, which is more internal.
Totally. And if you go into my website, I have my blogs there, and they're in English as well. And there are 3 or 4 of the last ones I wrote while I was in Donagadi that explain all the mental training. But there was a moment, when we were waiting for the swim, when one of my coaches told me that he wanted me to go into the water as I would do the day of the swim. And it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and the water is 12.7 degrees Celsius, which is pretty cold. Mm-hmm. And one of the visualizations that I had been trying to perform is, I call it the pearl. And I visualize a sphere in the lower part of my abdomen. And usually it's very effective to help me with pain and to help me with when I'm healing. And I had used that technique at one moment during the Triple Crown when I was in trouble with one of my arms, but I had never been able to get it red for a long period of time. to be able to cover me with energy to get the pain of the cold water out of my mind and have that gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the visualization I do is what I do with my coach, and he tells me the story of an old master in up in Himalayas who would sit down, meditate, and people would bring cloth soaked in cold water from the Himalayas, put him on his back, and he would dry the cloth. And he could do that for days. And it was just because if you looked at him, in his lower abdomen, you would see a big red sphere. So I get into the water, and I say, well, I better get the sphere going pretty soon because I'm gonna be suffering if I don't. And it worked, and it worked so well that I hit the boat. Because we a rubber boat, because we were swimming in sort of a bay, and that day I knew that the cold water was not going to be a problem. But it took me many hours of training and trying to do that visualization, and that helped me a lot.
So you were visualizing this kind of red heat. Was there a sensation of heat that was in your abdomen that was kind of radiating outward?
Exactly,
Yeah.
And that just kept my body. Yeah, I was cold, but it didn't hurt, and that's the key thing, because you probably have experienced it when you take your muscles for that many hours and move for that many hours, something is going to hurt. And if you don't have that under control, and you have many places in your body that are hurting, that's it's going to be impossible to sustain the swim.
Yeah, and it's almost like I think of what you're saying is it's easy to give too much power to the pain and to the discomfort. It's not that you don't acknowledge it, and do what you can do about it, but not dwell on it. And I think that what you're saying to me is so applicable to so many people that are in their bodies that have discomforts, that have little tweaks that happen in inhabiting a body. That's just what happens over the course of time and age. But that you focus on you focus internally on the goodness and don't give too much power to the pain. That's my takeaway from what you just said.
Totally. If you give power to the pain is going to be, much stronger than you. You have to be able to get that, that away.
So, how are you and your body today? How does your body feel today?
Well, I hadn't seen my strength coach for 2 weeks because I promised I was going to rest. And my back, I believe my shoulders were sore after the swim. To the day after the swim, there was no pain, and there hasn't been any pain. I think my strength program helped me a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel, the only thing I haven't been able to recover is my sleeping pattern. But I have no pain, and I flew from London, and then I had to go to the north of the country, and I've been on planes, and then I went to Boston to see my daughter, and I came back and I was on a plane again on Monday. No, if you were to ask me what is the only side effect from the swim, a negative side effect from the swim, it would be that I haven't been able to sleep well yet. The first night I slept only an hour and a half. Then for the next 3 days, I only slept about 3 hours. And I've been increasing the number of hours of sleep. I hope this weekend I'll be able to sleep 8 to 10 hours, and then I'll think I'll be okay.
Do you feel like you're still kind of catching up?
Yeah, catching up on my sleep, or be able to rest. Too many things happening the last 2 weeks. Too many flights. My daughter's going away for her MBA, so she's going to be gone for 2 years, and that's always. I'm glad for her, but it's always sad to have her gone for that long. These interviews that I've been giving, my work. I mean, sometimes I have to work as well. I have a lot of work to do. I run a system of private schools in the metropolitan area of Mexico City, and if I was a farmer, this is at the harvest season.
Yeah.
That's when school starts, and you have to get everybody enrolled, and that's a big thing. But no, physically, in terms of my body not feeling of the swim. It never happened. I mean, it was just the first hours, which is really normal after being in the water for so long, but I didn't have any second problems. Nothing is aching, or nothing had ached.
I have to ask you one question before I forget it. Have you been stung by a jellyfish?
Yes.
What's that feel like?
Horrible. No, when I was in Japan, I've been stung in Mexico. I've been stung I was stung in Hawaii. In Hawaii, I was stung really bad from the beginning of the swim. One of them in my nose, which really hurt. And my biggest fear was the jellyfishes in the North Channel. And I counted 27. After 27, I stopped counting them. I saw one that was really big. It was about 1 meter in diameter. And I was stung by 2 in my arm when I only had about 10 minutes to go. And those 2 baby stingings really hurt. I mean, I can't imagine somebody, if that had happened at the beginning of the swim, or if that had been, more of those encounters, I would have felt really, really bad. A very good friend of mine, who was the 6th person to do the Ocean 7, Kimberly Chambers from New Zealand, she was taken to the hospital after a swim and was in the hospital for 4 days because of the jellyfishes, the way they stung her.
Oh man, that's
people think that the sharks are the most dangerous. That can be a dangerous encounter. I've seen sharks and they won't do anything. It's very, very rare that they will attack you. No, the problem are the jellyfishes. Those are really bad.
And you're having to, what you said is you counted so many. So you're swimming and you're having to take your head out of, I would imagine, your typical rhythm of kind of rotating side to side and look ahead to see if you're swimming towards a jellyfish or not.
No, what happens is that some of them are below you.
Oh, okay.
The ones I counted, they were below me, but there were 2 who were very close, and I had to do what you just said, roll over on my back to the other side and get out of their way. But with 2 of them at the end, I wasn't able to do that.
Okay. Oh, man. So talk about nutrition and how that's changed in your life, if it has, and what you're thinking of nutrition today in terms of performance for you.
Well, I'm very bad with that one. I try to eat well, but I don't follow any specific diet. I eat less. I know which foods are not good for me. For example, I never drink a soft drink, but I drink wine. I like beer and tequila. I don't eat that much rice anymore because the rice increases my level of glucose. I don't eat any. I try to eat that as less sugar as I can. And I try to put I never put salt on my food. I eat the food with the salt that it comes with. And over the years, I've become very aware when some food have a lot of salt, I cannot eat it anymore. But those are sort of my basics. I don't follow a specific diet.
And so, what's up next for you? Where have you let your mind go towards? You've had this huge accomplishment in Ocean 7 and being one of the seventh person to do that. What are your thoughts about going ahead for you?
Well, I want to do two things. Number one, rest. That's something that I want to do, and because mentally it was very tough for 2 years to just be thinking about the workouts and the swims and all the logistics. And second, I want to write a book. I found out that people have liked my writings where I put fiction into them, and I'm going to write a book. So I used to have an imaginary friend when I was a little kid who was a pirate. His name was Don Julian. And when I did this swim, I created a story about Don Julian, because Don Julian became so real in my life that my parents had to tell my grandmother that the story had to end. So we had a big dinner at my grandfather's house, and Don Julian, I was informed that Don Julian had died in a confrontation with some other pirates, and that he had sent me his sword and a statue of him. And if you read the blog of Don Julian, what happened is that my wife is a psychoanalyst. So I told the story that I had a dream where Don Julian told me that I had to go and get our treasure, because he and I had a treasure. He had this half of the map and I had the other half of the map. And so I had to go and I had to look for clues. So I looked at the sword and I found some numbers on the sword. And then I looked at his statue and I found some other numbers. And for days I tried to make some sense about the numbers. And finally, I understood that there were coordinates. They gave me longitude and latitude. And when I plotted that, it was in North Channel, and it was on the Scottish side. So our treasure was there. And the whole North Channel was about my treasure hunting to recover our Don Julian and my treasure. And people liked it a lot. And so I couldn't write a book about the Don Julian and another character that I have developed, which is a tree that talks. And Don Julian and I are going to go in and have some stories and some fun, and along I will tell the story about the seven oceans. So that's what we're gonna be doing in the next couple of months.
That's terrific. I like it a lot. Having written a book and now looking back on it and thinking about what I would do next, I really like your themes and and sharing your pirate friend that you had as a child and kind of expanding on that now, or kind of. I think that could be really, really powerful. So go, man, do it. That's awesome.
And we'll have an English translation, and once I do, I'll send you a copy.
Oh, excellent. And I will send you a copy of my book. I'll get that address from you on email, but I'll send you down a copy for doing that. Do you have any? I could talk to you, my friend. I feel like I've known you a long time, but I could talk to you for another hour or two or three, but maybe this is good enough for a start. Do you have any final thoughts or tips for people to be in their body the best way possible for the rest of their lives?
Well, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share with your community this conversation and my story. And I'm going to be 60 pretty soon. And when I look into the future, and this is what I would like to share with people, is that I like to be able to get up every day in the morning and have a body that can take me anywhere I want without any pains. And that's a combination of different exercises, doing some cardiovascular and also doing some strength training. But I think the most important thing is enjoying it. When you do when people ask me why I do so much, why I swim so much, or why I do so much sports, at the end it's because I enjoy it. It's something that gives me a lot of pleasure. So whatever you do, hopefully will have you include some physical activity, but enjoy it. Not look at it as pain or as an obligation. Gotta be fun.
Yeah. Strong words, powerful words. Antonio, thank you. I'm going to try to pronounce your last name. Is it Argüelles?
Argüelles.
Argüelles.
That's it.
Argüelles. Okay. Well, I've been practicing, so I needed to try. So I was close. Antonio, thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'd love to stay in touch.
Perfect. We'll be in touch.
Okay. You take good care.
All I can say is wow. Just wow. What an incredible story from an incredible man. I have to admit that halfway through this podcast, I was listening and multitasking, thinking, I need to get on a plane and go to Mexico City and meet this guy. I need to just go hang out with him. And I still may. I better let him know, though, probably. But courage, yep. Determination, yep. The ability to keep coming back from adversity, from the little failures that one has in life. Yes, he did that as well. And he is living life very, very fully. But I love the last thing that he said about he's wanting to have a body that's there for him when he wants to use it and to be able to use it pain-free. So that's his motivation, to stay fit, to lift the weights, to do the stretching, to get his heart rate up, and to keep, on the path. And I'm applauding. Way to go, Antonio. And thanks for giving the example for all the rest of us to stay on that path. That's the life athlete. You are all life athletes. Remember my coach, Bill Mowerman, who said, and it's a Nike slogan, if you have a body, you're an athlete. So believe that. It is true. Take good care of yourselves. That's the essence of the life athlete way. Paying attention, doing what feeds you, doing what gives you vitality, gives you rest and recuperation, and a big damn smile when you get up in the morning and live your life. Go get them, guys. Take care until next time. Bye-bye.